one thing you should know about me is that I've always wanted to give a TED Talk. That's because people who give TED Talks are seen as smart and definitely not useless members of society. However, the problem is I've always been too lazy to give a talk. But to watch a talk, that part was easy. I've watched all sorts of TED Talks about the most important topics, ranging from how procrastinators' brains work, or to how to sound smart in your TED Talk. I may or may not have watched those yesterday, but that's besides the point. Having watched many TED Talks, I noticed that the best TED Talk and the best speakers always use colorful diagrams, lots of hand motions, change their tone, and quote credible sources to illustrate their point. So today, I'll be talking about laziness and procrastination. So learning from all the great TED Talk speakers, I decided to quote my grandma. According to my grandma, lazy people are useless. So as I lay on my couch eating chips and scrolling Instagram, I ask myself, are you useless? Some may say that my grandma's statement is bigoted, but she came from a time where efficiency and productivity were a means of survival. Success meant being efficient, but lazy people generally don't accomplish very much. They are therefore, by definition, inefficient, right? Well, I found that lazy people, including myself, are actually some of the most efficient people you'll know. That is because we have systems that allow us to get the most amount of work done in the least amount of time, and I have Bill Gates to back me up. When hiring someone to do a hard task, Bill Gates famously would hire a lazy person instead of a hard-working, very organized person, because that lazy person will find an easy way to do it. So take that, Grandma. For me, as I faced the various challenges of being a high schooler, whether that was choosing what to wear, finding the derivative of an equation with so many letters that it became a sentence, or studying for AP test after AP test, I found my own easy way. Let's take this very TED Talk for an example. About 5 months ago, I was selected to speak at SAS TEDx. As any lazy person would, I put the TEDx for some time later. Right at that moment, I activated my lazy person system that got me through the entirety of high school, which was procrastination. Just 2 months ago, I got a message from the TED team asking for the very first draft of this TED Talk. A bit panicked, I opened my laptop and made one click to YouTube. I surveyed the homepage and said to myself, I'll just do the TED Talk later. After one harmless cat video, I said to myself, you're him. You've left physics, labs, and investment pitches to the last second and still done pretty well for yourself. So you deserve to watch just one more video. That one cat video turned into me watching a couple more Who is the Best Pokemon videos, which then led to an hour and a half of watching How to Get a Girlfriend tutorials. I shamelessly deleted my search history right after and thought my grandmother must be really disappointed. But then in a blur, I was 2 weeks away from this talk. However, seeing that I stand before you today, I got the job done, didn't I? I indeed did have a TED Talk to present. I was actually efficient. I completed an almost 2,000-word script in a couple of, to give myself some credit, well-planned hours. But at what cost? The whole 2 months I had my TED script hanging over my head. I knew I really should have just done it and got it over with, but instead I told myself I'd watch one cat video, and that was that. I spent hours going down rabbit holes just avoiding writing my script. I told myself I've been in this situation before. Papers, lab reports, presentations, I've left all of those to the last minute and actually produced pretty solid products. But I still felt guilty and stressed. I heard my grandma's words echo in my ear. Lazy people are simply useless. So I felt pretty bad about myself. Yet I still chose to put off the script. By watching those YouTube videos now, not only was I now behind on this TED Talk, but I also had homework from other classes, responsibilities at home, sports training, college essays, and the lack of a girlfriend to account for. You can probably imagine this daily existential crisis I have creates quite the snowball effect, one that I'm sure many of you have felt today. It is a guilty, self-deprecating experience because us lazy people know that we should have been productive and focused. The burdens of wanting to do well, socially, professionally, or academically, places enormous stress on everyone who procrastinates, which sacrifices how you're doing emotionally. Procrastination occurs when we put things, often important and consequential tasks, off for later, even though we know doing so would have negative consequences. So why do we do it? Why do we put these tasks off when we know it's creating more stress for us? Seeing how I procrastinate, speaking to school counselors and other psychiatrists, and researching for myself, I synthesized that most people procrastinate from a deep-seated fear. The fear of simply not being good enough. In a culture where every other week, 17-year-olds are on the path to cure cancer, or some savvy data scientist comes up with a revolutionary AI model that makes my homework really, really easy, a lot of people, including myself, feel an internal tugging, a tugging pressure generated by a delusion of questions. Why aren't you on a path to revolutionize the world? Or Or why aren't you getting a 4.0 at school? Or why aren't you getting that promotion that your colleague Jeff got last month? These questions confront each one of us when we need to do something important. But in a society where personal meaning is often found in tangible, large-scale success, any level of failure threatens identity itself. And hence, when these questions stare us right at the face, that threatens our sense of self. The amygdala, a component in our brain responsible for processing threats, is alarmed. It then sends off signals to the rest of the brain to trigger a flight or fright reaction that often overpowers our prefrontal cortex, or our part of the brain responsible for being responsible. This causes us to make the highly irresponsible choice to procrastinate. Now, in the 21st century, where the entirety of the known universe is known to man, from ASMR food videos to the breakdowns of the physics of black holes, is available with one click on our phones, procrastination has become the easiest thing to do. One click and we escape from our insecurities. Isn't that just great? But furthermore, in the past, our laziness and procrastination hadn't really impacted my end product. Many of my projects that I left to the last minute ended up solid more or less. So like Bill Gates' quote suggests, lazy people often find clever ways to get hard things done. So as lazy people, we don't really feel the consequence of procrastination. At least we don't feel the need. Research shows that over time, our procrastination wins. Productivity declines and our mental health loses. According to the U.S. Center for Disease Control, in COVID 2021, 42% of students felt persistently sad or hopeless, 37% of students experienced poor mental health, and 22% seriously considered attempting suicide. And those are just the numbers that they're willing to report. The real numbers are probably much worse and much more staggering. These alarming trends reported by the CDC are inextricably linked to the increased rates of procrastination, as our laziness often contributes to mountains of work, responsibility, and consequences to pile up, causing stress and even other more severe mental health issues. So I guess Grandma was right. Sort of. Lazy people aren't really useless, but we definitely could work on a few things, one of which are our habits. In the 21st century, the one thing we cannot live without is the internet. Just as easily as it can teach you important knowledge, connect you with friends across the world, the internet also makes being lazy really, really easy. In my previous example, I procrastinated through my laptop on YouTube. If you think about your own life, you probably feel pretty guilty about how much you're on Instagram or how much you're on WeChat. And at this present, you may not be going through mental health struggles, but I encourage you all just to be mindful with your internet usage. Seeing that mental health is extremely linked to your usage habits, we can therefore interpret the data that suggests that the internet and its addictive technologies reinforce negative behaviors such as reliance on instant gratification and constant comparisons for millions worldwide, which for teens can mean up to 2 times of an increase in the probability of being diagnosed for depression. So given how dire the situation is, the world has already acted on this alarming mental health decline. Social media giants have been served with lawsuits by the governments of Pennsylvania's Bucks County, California's San Mateo County, Maryland's Howard County, and Tennessee's Clarksville, Montgomery County, for their role in teenagers and adults becoming severely addicted to social media and video games, which damages mental health, promotes negative self-image, and declines productivity. So though these steps are in the right direction, I took it upon myself to make a tangible change. Under this year's Catalyst theme, I embodied the corniest line and probably the line I hate most that teachers use. I tried to be the change I wanted to see in the world. I realized that most of us are aware that we're procrastinating, but we don't have a tool to hold ourselves steady when faced with those fears of failure that undermine our sense of self. So after 2 years of tinkering, designing, pitching various ideas to business mentors, and of course being very, very lazy, I created ZenZone. ZenZone is an anti-procrastination app that catalyzes productivity and sustainable mental health by blocking out online distractors. Being a serial procrastinator myself, I designed this app through the mind of a procrastinator. A lot of the times, the tasks we procrastinate doing can actually be done successfully if we split them up into smaller, more digestible steps. That fear of failure is often too great to overcome because we view the high level of performance we expect from ourselves when doing our tasks in its entirety. This is why ZenZone aims to guide users to use the scientifically optimal 30 minutes and doing smaller portions of a larger task to minimize the fight or fright reaction and help users make a responsible choice for themselves. Using social media and the internet's own addictive technology to enhance themselves, ZenZone also has a streaks feature, which is one of the most well-proven techniques to get people to repeatedly use an app. But instead of scrolling TikTok, ZenZone urges you to repeatedly block out distractions. Had I had ZenZone when I was supposed to prepare this TED Talk, I would have never been able to go down that rabbit hole on YouTube. That ended in a reminder that I have no charisma escape grandma's disappointment. So looking back on that day, I realized there are clear steps ahead of me, and there's also clear steps ahead of you too. We have often berating ourselves for not completing our to-do list or not being productive enough, for not accomplishing everything that we set out to do. But remember, you are not defined by your tasks or your laziness. You are a complex, evolving being with thoughts, feelings, and aspirations. Your mental health isn't some negligible factor in a system of procrastination. Rather, it's a necessity. For me, I'll work on procrastinating less, but I'll try not to lose that lazy ingenuity because I still want to be hired by Bill Gates one day. For you all in the audience, you now have things to do, things that you should be doing now, and definitely not later. So 1, you need to extend compassion to yourself and others. 2, be mindful of your internet addiction. And 3, find what works for your productivity. Or, you could do these things later. It's really up to you. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. With that, we conclude our TEDx at Shanghai American School Puxi for 2023. Thank you again for taking the time to come to this special occasion. It was a pleasure having you this afternoon. And thank you to all the speakers who have dedicated their time and effort in relentlessly improving their delivery and speech over the past few months. And last but not least, thank you to our TEDx community. The event could not be made possible without all of you. As the event concludes, we'll also like to invite you to leave your email address, if you will, for us to reach out to you for further feedback surveys and follow-ups. We'll see you next year. Thank you.